Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the ablative absolute. To review the basics, ablatives absolute have absolutely nothing to do with the grammar of the rest of the sentence. They're just hanging out their own kind of separate clause. Any tense of the participle can be used. A lot of people think because it's an ablative absolute you have to translate having been, but that's not true. They do not have to involve participles. There can be two nouns or a noun and an adjective. And they are not used if the nouns involved can be put into any other case in the sentence. Okay, so we take a basic one from Caesar, his rebus cognitis, these things having been learned, or with these things having been learned. Notice that the main part of the sentence, aliquid factum est, something was done. Right? The things may have a relationship to the thing that was done. We learned the things and then we did something, but grammatically there is no relationship between his rebus and the main sentence, aliquid factum est. Okay, notice that is different from having learned these things. Okay, why? Well, why is that different? Right? Cognitis is passive, right? Having learned is active. What's the difference between that and complores Caesarem secuti? Well, there it is. Many men having followed Caesar. There, first of all, is that an ablative absolute? Look at this one. Cum pluribus Caesarem secutis. With many men having followed Caesar. Looking at the first one, we add in cum plures Caesarem secuti iter faciebant. The subject is cum plures secuti. It's not an ablative absolute. Many people, having followed Caesar, were making a journey. That is not disjoined from the rest of the sentence. It is the subject. Whereas, if we look at the second one, with many men having followed Caesar, a trap happened. Notice that that is not related to the previous, to the ablative absolute, grammatically. That's the important point. Okay, here is one with a present active participle, Deo volente, which means with God being willing, or just God willing. And here we have another sentence, omnes tuti erimus, right, again, we will all be safe, God willing, right? Notice the separation between the rest of the sentence and the ablative absolute. Notice, too, there's no having been. Why? Volente is a present active participle. Now, what if we put it in a different case? Not in the ablative anymore. Deum volentem, God being willing, or a willing God. Okay, now it's the accusative. We can make it an accusative. Omnes laudabimus. We shall all praise a willing God. Okay? Alright, sometimes ablative absolutes don't even have to have participles at all. So, id factum est Caesare consule, it happened with Caesar being consul, or when Caesar was consul. Notice that there is no participle, so we supply one in English, being, from the verb to be. Right? When there's no verb in Latin, you supply a form of to be. Here's another one with an adjective, me invito nihil efficies. Right? You will accomplish nothing with me unwilling, or when, or if, or because I am unwilling. Invito saum is an adjective, so me invito, and we add a form of to be, a participle of to be, which does not exist in Latin. Okay, finally, when we talk about translation of the ablative absolute, you can translate it awkwardly, as I've been doing, using with, or more smoothly, using when, since, although, while, if, after, any number of words there, depending on the logical relationship of the ablative absolute with the rest of the sentence. There is a logical relationship. There is not a grammatical one. Okay, so we can look at back to his rebus cognitis. An awkward translation would be with these things having been learned. A smoother one would be when these things were learned, or since they were learned, or although they were learned, depending on the way the rest of the sentence goes. Okay? But again, notice that the tense will change. If you go the smooth route, the tense will change depending on the main verb. So if we say his rebus cognitis exploratores praemittit with a present tense, when these things were learned time before, he sends ahead scouts. Now we change it to praemisit. When these things had been learned, he sent ahead scouts. You don't have to use the smooth translation, but if you do, you want to get the tense relationship right. Finally, if you want to review further, I would recommend going to page 23 in Colby, doing 1 through 10, and then I'll have a little video with the answers and with explanations of the answers.